The book of Abraham begins with an account of the biblical patriarch Abraham almost being sacrificed to dumb idols and strange gods. The form of sacrifice practiced by Abraham's kinsmen in Ur was said to be after the manner of the Egyptians, and indeed a priest of Pharaoh was involved in the procedure. This suggests that Abraham's kinsmen had adopted elements of Egyptian practice and incorporated these elements into their local Chaldean practice. This raises the question of whether the ancient Egyptians ever practiced human sacrifice. While scholars might disagree on what precise terminology to use, there is, in the words of one Egyptologist, indisputable evidence for the practice of human sacrifice in classical ancient Egypt. Some of the evidence for this practice dates to the likely time of Abraham. The story presented in the Book of Abraham matches remarkably well with the picture of ritual slaying in Egypt during the same time period, concluded two Egyptologists in a study of this evidence. For example, a stone inscription from the 18th century BC decrees that anyone trespassing sacred space reserved only for priests would be burned. This indicates a cultural setting for milieu in which slaying someone for desecration of sacred space was an accepted practice. A royal inscription from 2 centuries earlier depicts the Egyptian king as decreeing death upon the children of the enemy for desecrating a temple. This apparently included punishment by flaying, impalement, beheading, and burning. When the sacred house of a god had been desecrated, the Egyptian king responded by sacrificing those responsible. There is also archaeological evidence for human sacrifice or ritual slaying at an Egyptian fortress at the site of Mirgisa in modern northern Sudan. During the time of Abraham, this site was part of the Egyptian Empire and was under Egyptian control. Discovered at the site was a deposit containing various ritual objects such as a melted wax figurines, a flint knife, and the decapitated body of a foreigner slain during rites designed to ward off enemies. Almost universally, this discovery has been accepted as a case of human sacrifice. The view is supported by so-called execration texts, or magical spells used to ward off evil and curse enemies by destroying a wax or clay human effigy, comparable to a voodoo doll. It would appear from the evidence uncovered at Mirgisa that on some occasions, these magical rituals were performed on actual humans as opposed to figurines, such as foreigners who were seen as a threat to Egyptian political and social order. From this evidence, we can conclude the following about Egyptian human sacrifice during Abraham's time. 1. That it was more or less ritual in nature. That it was sometimes undertaken for cultic offenses or offenses against Egypt's gods. That the Pharaoh was involved and that the sacrifice was sometimes under his order. That sometimes these sacrifices were initiated for rebellion against the Pharaoh. That the sacrifice could take place both in Egypt proper and outside the boundaries in areas under Egyptian influence. These details converge remarkably well with the Book of Abraham, offering a plausible historical context for Abraham's near sacrifice.